Iran, Trump, gas prices, inflation, and a potential for a draft. What is happening in our country? What do I think we need to do? I think we need to pull out of Iran. I think we need to stop being the puppet of Israel. I think we need to stop having this proxy war with Russia. And we need to start focusing more on what's taking place here in the United States. Why this is important to you is that mindset matters. And so while you can't control Iran and Trump and gas prices and inflation and all those things, there are some things you can't control. And here's the 3 things I'm going to tell you to control. Man, these are some weird ass times. Trump is bombing the crap out of Iran. He told us that there'd be no new wars. Draft, they're talking about the draft and drafting your kids and my kids into the military. And of course, gas prices everywhere have gone up. They're $7 here in Southern California. Welcome to the Bedros Keuilian Show. All right, so I want to talk to you guys about everything that's taking place. Iran, Trump, gas prices, inflation, and a potential for a draft. What is happening in our country, right? And so, first of all, to everyone who was like, man, Bedros, you voted for Trump. You said he was the guy. Remember, I said it's the devil you know, the devil you don't. Of the 2 options that we had between Trump and Kamala, I still feel I made the right decision. Now, we can't go back and see how that other timeline would play out with Kamala Harris as president. Maybe it'd be different. Maybe it wouldn't. Maybe it'd be another different devil, right? But that said, holy crap, what is happening in the world? So I wanted to address everything here. First off, look, do I personally feel, because people are asking me on social media, what is your opinion on this whole thing with Iran? Do I feel Iran was a threat? Sure. They were a threat. Were they an imminent threat? No. Because you look at other countries like North Korea is a threat. China is a threat. Russia is a threat, right? So there are other countries that are threats, yet we didn't go out and bomb the shit out of them. Why? Because they didn't have oil, if you want my opinion. And that's what I'm going to give you here is my opinion. And it's probably also why we dethroned the president of Venezuela. They also happen to have oil. And we also know that China does a lot of their oil purchases through the Strait of Hormuz, which is right there in Iran, and through Venezuela. And so we are trying to affect, I think, China as well. But make no mistake about it, Trump also is probably trying to get his arms around the oil, right? Because he's an entrepreneur, he's a billionaire, and he thinks that way. Now, did he break a promise to us that we wouldn't have no new wars? I think so. I think so. And for the people that are like, hey, man, but you voted for him and you convinced us to vote for him, here's what I got to say. Look, man, you might get into a relationship and you've got your honey and everything's going great. That doesn't mean that you don't have a disagreement, right? Now, do I also believe that Trump is kind of being manipulated by Israel? Yeah, absolutely. I don't think in my heart of hearts that we, the United States, would have gone into Iran and dropped bombs like we're doing right now had Israel not gone in first, no matter what. Israel was going to go in no matter what. And if you want me to really put on my tinfoil hat, I'll tell you this. I think that Trump and Epstein have a deeper relationship, had a deeper relationship. We all know that the Epstein files that were supposed to be put out, that Trump said would be put out, and he said this on the Sean Ryan show, he said this on the Joe Rogan show, those Epstein files have not been put out unredacted in their totality. They haven't. You know it, and I know it. They keep doing a song and dance, and the versions they keep putting out are redacted, and they're the smallest versions of it, and then they're the hardest way to actually find them and go through them. Like, you have to search for things. Like, well, I don't know whose name to search. How about you just put out a big, giant PDF, or break it up into dates or years that emails were sent out, and let people go and access that unredacted? But that's not what's happening. Why? Because I do think that Trump was compromised, just like a lot of those billionaire douchebags were, right? And do I want to go further with my tinfoil hat and maybe say that Epstein could have been working for Israel, their version of the CIA, the Mossad, that maybe Epstein was compromised, and so his job was to get a lot of dirt on our politicians, on our billionaires who influence government, so that when the time came and the time was needed, that could be held over them? Sure, I think that could happen. I think that might be happening. Do I have evidence? I don't. I don't have evidence. But why else would Trump throw his hat in the ring and start bombing Iran when Iran is not an imminent threat? Guys, quick interruption to the Bedros Keuilian Show. I want to tell you about the Man Up bundle that I have for you for $29, and 100% of it goes to Shriners Children's Hospital, where we're going to do a lot of good, and you're going to build an awesome business and have a great life because of it. You not only get the digital version of my international best-selling book, Man Up, you also get the audiobook version of it and 2 very exclusive masterclass recordings that I did just earlier this month that is focused specifically on scaling your business and having breakthroughs. Scale Strategies Masterclass is all about how to scale your business in marketing, sales, systems, automation, and leadership. And the Breakthrough Blueprint Masterclass is all about breaking through your limiting beliefs, breaking through uncertainties, and breaking through to get to the next level of happiness and success in business and in life. Best of all, you get all of this for $29 because you watch and listen to the Bedros Keuilian Show. And I'm donating 100% of that money to Shriners Children's Hospital, where they do a lot of good and give a lot of surgeries and medical services to kids whose families can't afford that. So go to manuptribe.com and get the Bedros Keuilian Man Up bundle before it all sells out. Peace. An imminent threat is like, hey, any day now they're going to attack us. We have evidence of it, and we need to attack them before they attack us. There's none of that. Like I said, like China, North Korea, Russia, Iran is a threat, but we're not attacking any other country, and we're not going to war against any other country. And so I believe because Israel went in, because they're having a religious war. They're having a religious war, and there's something being held over Trump's head. We no longer are putting America first, and instead, we went in and bombed Iran, I think, against Trump's desires. But he had to show solidarity and unity, and I think he wouldn't have done that if there wasn't something being held over his head. Now, this is just me pontificating. This is just me theorizing. What do I know? I'm just some guy on social media sharing my thoughts. But that's my opinion on Iran. Now, is it important that we pull out of there soon? I think so, because I don't think a lot of the allied countries are going to come in and help us like they did during the global war on terror. They're not. They're not, which means this is going to be squarely on our shoulders and on the shoulders of Israel, which ultimately Israel is funded by us anyway, right? All we keep doing is giving money to Israel, giving money to Ukraine, sending money to everyone and every place outside of the United States, not putting America and Americans first. So with that said, do I feel bad for the people of Iran? Absolutely, man. Look, I'm from Armenia. We're not that far away. My country is not that far away from Iran. I know what oppression is like. The Soviet Union, when I lived in Armenia, took and commandeered Armenia, and we were under Russian control. And I know what that's like. But do I think for a moment that we're going to be able to go and bomb Iran like we did with Afghanistan and Iraq, and all of a sudden turn them into a democracy, a freedom-loving country, that all of a sudden they're going to say, hey, let's adopt the American Constitution or create our version of the American Constitution, give all these people freedom and equality, let women go and vote? That's not going to happen. Man, they come from the Stone Ages. They come from the Stone Ages. There's a lot of history there. There's a lot of ideological and religious belief systems that there's no way we can break and help them set new things in place. Now, could Iran do better? Sure. I feel bad for those women who are having to be oppressed, for the kids who are separated. Boys and girls have to go to different schools. The women have to be completely covered up. That's not how it used to be in Iran. Believe it or not, they had more Western type freedoms. That's not how it used to be, but that's how it is now. But now it's up to them, the Iranian population, to reestablish a government that's more pro its citizens. What do I think we need to do? I think we need to pull out of Iran. I think we need to stop being the puppet of Israel. I think we need to stop having this proxy war with Russia, in my opinion. And we do that through Ukraine, by funding Ukraine and getting, equipment and people in Ukraine to fight a war against Russia. And we need to start focusing more on what's taking place here in the United States. But what's important to you? If you're watching or listening to this episode, what's important to you? Now, I know that for a while there, just a few months ago, people were writing all over the streets about ICE. Do you think all of a sudden ICE stopped taking people and shipping them back to their countries who are illegal? No, I didn't stop doing that. So what happened? Well, big media decided to take your attention off of ICE, to take your attention off of the Epstein files, and they decided to put it on Iran, right? It's the whole wag the dog. That's all it is.
Hey guys, quick interruption to the Bedros Keuilian show. Listen, if you're like me and you love fitness, you love helping people, and you love being an entrepreneur, you might want to open up a Fit Body Bootcamp gym. Doesn't matter what day of the week, what time the session is, Fit Body Bootcamp locations are full of clients getting amazing results. With hundreds of locations across the United States and Canada, we are helping people burn fat and build muscle while helping entrepreneurs like you develop business models that are successful and have recurring revenue. So if you think Fit Body Bootcamp might be a great business model for you, then I want you to go to fitbodybootcamp.com. I want you to click the franchising link, fill out the application to see if there's a territory available in your town, in your area. And who knows, if you're a good fit, we will invite you to the Fit Body Bootcamp family. Now back to the show.
They will put your attention, and they will try and put my attention and our attention anywhere they want to cause a distraction. And after the Iran thing, there will be another thing. Will Epstein files come back to light? Yes. And will they create another distraction so that they can all of a sudden forget about the Epstein files, at least temporarily? Yep. So you have to understand that the news cycle and the government, left or right wing, does not matter. It's the same wings, same bird, right? It doesn't matter. They want you to stay dumb, scared, controlled, dependent, and in fear and uncertainty. Because if they can keep you in that state constantly, you are not going to focus on the betterment of your life. You're just going to go to work and pay your taxes. The average American already spends 6.5 months of their working time for the government. In other words, 6.5 months of your pay goes towards some form of taxes. Sales taxes, income taxes, property taxes, you name it. You name the tax, you and I are paying it, right? Now, why am I working 6.5 months a year to give that to the government and only keeping 5.5 months of that to myself? Why is that? Well, because they're funding all these wars. Well, why are they also funding all these wars? Because there are lobbyists. There are lobbyists from the big military industrial complexes. They're building tanks, airplanes, bombs, new technology. And if there are no wars, there are no tanks, bombs, airplanes, and new technology for war. So they need war to continue. They need to manufacture war. The United States was founded on war. We've been around for almost 300 years now, the United States, right? Under 300 years. And you look at the history of the United States, it's war after war after war after war. From the Civil War all the way through the current war in Iran. If it's not, World War I, World War II, the Korean War, then Vietnam. I mean, how many wars are we going to have? And in 2026, that we would bomb a country that is not an imminent threat and suggest that we might have to bring back the draft. As a dad who's got a son who's 20 years old, that worries me. Not because I wouldn't want him to go in the military. I've got great military friends, men and women. And if my son and daughter wanted to go in the military to defend and protect our country, I'm all for it. I've even encouraged that to them. I said, if you can't think of a path right now, that might be an option. However, for another country, Israel, because we've decided to go and stay in alignment with them and bomb a country that is not an imminent threat? No, absolutely not. Absolutely not. So I share this with you because if you're a parent, you could understand what I'm saying. If you are the provider of money to your household, you could understand what I'm saying about the inflation and gas prices and everything being so expensive. You could understand the fear and the uncertainty that's out there, but also understand that whether it's ICE, the Epstein files, Ukraine, Iran, Israel, there's always going to be another thing that they're going to put out in front of you and me to distract us and try and keep us in fear and frustration, anxiety, uncertainty, and keep us separated. Because if they can get us to disagree on as many things as possible, we will not unify against the government, right? So why am I sharing all this with you? One, I wanted to give you my position on Iran and Trump and gas prices and the draft and all that. But number two, there's also something we can do about it. There really is something we can do about it. And I want to tell you the story about Molly Brown. Molly Brown was a passenger on the Titanic. And in 1912, when the Titanic set off for its maiden voyage, she was from a wealthy family. And Molly Brown now has a really cool name. They call her the unsinkable Molly Brown. Her real name is Margaret Brown, but they call her the unsinkable Molly Brown, and I'll tell you the story. So in 1912, as the Titanic goes off on this maiden voyage, she comes from a very wealthy family. As you can imagine, she's a first-class passenger on the Titanic. By day 3, when the Titanic hits the iceberg and slowly starts sinking, what do they say? Women and children first. She, being a woman, was one of the first to be on one of those lifeboats. And of course, the next group of people that got lifeboats were those who had higher status socially, those in first class on the Titanic. They got boats. And then if you've ever seen the movie Titanic, everyone else in the middle class and the lower class passengers, there was no more boats. There was no more lifeboats. And many of them died, and many of them were afloat, holding on to random things floating in the Atlantic Ocean. Molly Brown, who was on that boat, was like, hey, we've got to go and help some of these people out of the water. And she's in her lifeboat with like 30, 40 other people. And the person in charge of that lifeboat is Quartermaster Robert Hitchens. He's a quartermaster on that ship, the Titanic. And now he's essentially the captain of this lifeboat. Now, keep in mind, it's 1912. Women don't even have a right to vote in the United States. Women don't have a voice. Women are seen as lesser. And Molly Brown is like, hey, we are going to go and help these people. And she rallied enough people on that boat where they were able to go and help pluck more people out of the water. Over 700 people survived the sinking of the Titanic, many of which thanks to the unsinkable Molly Brown, because she kept rallying the troops and she kept standing up to Robert Hitchens, the quartermaster, and saying, no, we're going to go and save these people. And once all these people were saved, she created the Titanic Survivors Community. And then she helped raise over $10,000, which in today's money, it's like millions of dollars, for the poor people who almost drowned, but were saved thanks to her actions in the Titanic. So why do I share this with you? Because the entire time while she was saying that we need to go save these people who are floating around on random planks and stuff in the cold Atlantic Ocean, Robert Hitchens, a man, quartermaster of this ship, of this boat, was like, no, we can't do that. We've already got too many people on this boat. They'll end up having a revolt against us, and we'll end up in the water. They'll end up in the ships. There's no way we're going back. Already we're going to be out here. We're going to be dead anyway. The guy's on a lifeboat with 30, 40 other people, and he's pessimistic, he's fearful, he's uncertain, and he's gloom and doom. While Molly Brown on that same boat is like, no, we are going to be okay. We will be rescued. Now it's on to us. There's still some room in this boat and those other boats out there. We all need to rally and go save some people. Two people on the same boat. One is fearful, doubtful, uncertain, and pessimistic, Robert Hitchens. And Molly Brown is brave, uses her voice, rallies the troop, and is optimistic, and helps save so many people out of the water. What's the difference? Because if you look at the country now as a whole, the world as a whole, as the Titanic, you could either be Robert Hitchens or you can be the unsinkable Molly Brown. Because if you allow yourself to get so worked up, so emotionally charged, if you feel so defeated because of the Epstein files aren't being released, the billionaires will go on to live their awesome lives while having committed such evil acts. ICE continues to do this, that, and the other. We bomb Iran, a potential of a draft. Gas prices are through the roof. We send more money to Israel and Ukraine. Who are we going to go and attack next? If you continue to dwell on that, if you continue to feel defeated, you will feel like that quartermaster, Robert Hitchens, that there's no hope, that there's no opportunity. You will be pessimistic and uncertain and full of doubt. You will accept inevitable death. Or you can choose to be like Molly Brown. She was a fucking gangster. Molly, the unsinkable Brown, was like, we are not going to leave those people in the water. They were on the Titanic with us. Just because they're not affluent, they don't have status, they don't have money, doesn't mean that those living people floating around on the Atlantic Ocean right now can't be saved. And we will save them. And sure enough, she did. She rallied the troops, and other boats, lifeboats, came in and helped out. So much so that they made a stage show and a movie about the unsinkable Molly Brown. Why this is important to you is that mindset matters. And so while you can't control Iran and Trump and gas prices and inflation and all those things, there are some things you can't control. And here's the 3 things I'm going to tell you to control. 1, understand that you could be a Molly Brown. Remember, I told you that she was affluent. She wasn't just born into wealth, by the way. She was actually born into poverty. Through hard work with her family, they struck gold in Colorado. You could imagine they're digging, they're panning for gold, they're blowing up sides of mountains, they're hustling, they're putting in the work, and they struck it rich finally and became part of the wealthy families in the United States. As such, she takes this maiden voyage as a first-class passenger on the Titanic because she's got dough, she's rich. She uses her money and her status as influence, right? And so understand that thing number 1 you can do when you can't control Trump or Iran or the gas prices or the scary talking heads on the news who are just constantly putting doubt and uncertainty in your head. 1, start making more money. Because when you have financial status like Molly Brown, you have more options, you have more choices, and you have a voice. Start figuring out how to make more money. How can I add more value to society? What is the new skills and traits that I can develop that I could sell? What can I do to start saving more money, investing more money, and making more money for myself? Use this as a 5-year goal, not a 5-month goal. Over the next 5 years, what can I do to financially turn my life around in a big way? What can I do to start making 50, 60, 100,000 a month? Because if you can do that and start scaling from there, you become a current modern day Molly Brown. Make more money. Number 2, reduce the news. There's no good news on the news. Surely somewhere in the country, there's a little old lady that was able to cross the street thanks to the help of a young Samaritan. Surely there was a kitten in a tree that was helped by some firefighters and brought down. Surely there was a car accident where a person was hemorrhaging blood, but another passenger pulled over and rendered first aid and helped them out. There's plenty of good news happening every minute of every day. But you know what? They're not going to tell you that. CNN, Fox News, the talking heads, NBC, none of these fuckers are going to tell you any of that. They're going to constantly bombard you with fear, doubt, uncertainty. And when they do that, you begin to get demoralized. You begin to lose momentum and steam. You begin to take your eyes off of the prize and you start focusing on the shit they want you to focus on, right? So start making more money. Stop ingesting news. Now you might ask, well, should I just stay dumb and uninformed? Trust me, bro. You're on social media. You're not going to stay dumb and uninformed. If something worthwhile happens in the world, you'll be the first to know. Like everyone else, you're social scrolling 2 to 3 hours a day anyway. And if something newsworthy actually happens, you will be notified. I promise you. The most newsworthy thing that you can focus on right now is your life, your health, your mental well-being, improving your financial position in life, taking care of your family, the people that matter to you, creating financial freedom, and developing a way to think on your own and not being told how to think by the big news media system. And the third thing is to become your own hero. That is what Molly Brown did. She became the hero. She was like, hey, look, I'm safe now. I'm on a lifeboat because I have status, because I'm first class, because I'm affluent. I'm safe. I'm good. She could have stopped there, but she didn't. She decided to use her voice. She decided to be brave. She decided to take action. She decided to be an advocate for others. And so you can become your own hero. Save yourself first so that you can start helping and saving and blessing others. And if you can do those 3 things, it doesn't matter who the fucking president is. It doesn't. And I hate to sound cynical, but it doesn't. I don't know if we're going to get Kamala Harris next time or if we're going to get Gavin Newsom, or if we're going to get J.D. Vance, or if they're going to prop up some other bullshit clown and say this is the new savior of our country. Whoever it is not going to look out for you. I promise you that. They're going to look out for the lobbyists, big pharmaceutical companies, big food conglomerates, big tech companies, and of course the military-industrial complex, because those big organizations pump so much money, bribery, into these politicians that these politicians will do what they say. They're not going to look out for you and me. Only you and I can look out for each other, right? So focus on what matters. As my friend Craig Ballantyne always says, the 3 C's, right? Control what you can control, cope with what you can't control, and concentrate on what counts. And if you're willing to do that, I promise you, no amount of world disaster can take peace and happiness out of your heart, ever. And ultimately, isn't that what it's all about? Guys, thank you for watching this episode of the Bedros Keuilian Show or listening to it on the podcast platforms. If you're watching this on YouTube, know that 72% of you are not subscribed. If you got any value from this, do me a favor, subscribe. It costs you nothing and it helps the algorithms to get this message to more people. But above all, remember this, that average is the enemy. Success is your responsibility, and change can take place in an instant if you are willing to flip the switch. I'll see you next time.